everybody, welcome in to Trackalicious, where we bring you coverage of today's race for the GT4 Rookies Championships. Second round underway today around the famous British track at Brands Hatch. Excuse me. Hope you're all doing well today. Welcome in. Hope we can start your week on a high note here. GT4 Rookies always provide green light. Go. An exciting bit of racing for the 20-minute doubleheader that we have planned ahead. As the format remains the same for this season, we've got the 15-minute qualifying sessions to set the grid for the start of the first race tonight. And let's head down to the famous Brands Hatch track, located about an hour southeast of London. Has hosted the British Touring Car Championship, plenty of GT racing series, some Formula One races in the past, as well as superbikes. But tonight, it hosts round number 2 of the GT4 Rookies Championship. Tai Chin, the first winner of the season last week, won the first 20-minute race from pole position. But in race number 2, it was Reese Simmons, who's still in the pits in the 64 AMG, who was able to take the win in race number 2. Brian, welcome back to the podium. Hope you're doing well, my friend. We've got a BMW. We've got two BMWs on the grid for you tonight, my friend Brian. In the likes of Alexander Harosh and Austin Charlier out on track. In the number 53 Firebrand BMW, no Blanche this week, but Firebrand being represented tonight by Austin in the number 53 BMW. Going through the end of Sector 2. Or Sector 3, excuse me. He's at the end of the lap. Just 9 corners around Brands Hatch. Just 2.4 miles for a lap. Short but sweet track. Rolling hills provide such a challenge as Austin Charlier sets off on his first timed lap. Duarte Manhita making the season debut tonight in the number 27 AMG, heading down through Pilgrim's Drop and into the quick right-handers. First into Hawthorns, then a bit of a gap before Duarte applies a dab of the brakes, cutting the corner as much as possible. Doesn't want to drift too wide. He gets a little bit onto the grass there on the exit as he goes through the dip and back up the hill once more through turn 7. And now just 2 corners remain for the AMG. Will we see a timed lap on the board here from Duarte? Drifting just a touch wide at the final corner, but able to keep all of the speed and keeping the wheels out of the grass, most importantly. And to the top of the charts goes Duarte, a 132.440, the time to chase for the rest of the grid. Scarlett Brown looking to get a time on the board as Josh Ransom gets a timed lap, about 2.9 seconds down of Duarte's pole position time. Scarlett Brown splits the 2 cars with a timed lap, 1.385 seconds behind the time set by Duarte. Chase Donnelly to the line. The Camaro goes to 3rd ahead of Josh Ransom. Chris Saunderson sets an identical time to Josh Ransom. 1:35.372 for the pair of drivers, sitting in 5th and 6th as Screech in the 52 Alpine goes to third. Baptist gets a valid lap on the board. Where can last week's race winner Tai Chin go in the KTM? 3 KTMs on the grid this week. Sarah Klein on the board in the 904, gets ahead of Baptist behind Saunderson. Tai Chin unable to get a, valid lap on the board is achieved, and it is the fastest one, a 131.5 from Tai Chin. And Josh Ransom gets an improvement on the board as he goes into the top 5. Check in with Firebrand's Austin Charlier. Rounding out the final corner. So much camber throughout the lap, particularly in this start-finish section, as Charlier goes to 8th ahead of Klein, behind Saunderson. Lewis Screech, season debut for the Alpine, as the 52 goes up into the podium positions. No times on the board yet from Vladis Prakash Natasan here in the 82 Camaro. Reese Simmons, race winner from last week. Kanoko and Douglas in the pit lane. Rounding out the final corner goes the Dark Side Racing Camaro to the line. Will this be the valid lap that Natsusan was looking for? It was a valid lap. Or no, it was not a valid lap once again from Natsusan. Check in with chat favorite Hezzy Thomas. Currently sitting in 12th position. About 2/10 behind John Baptist in 11th. About half a second behind a spot inside the top 10. Now just one corner left for Hezzy Thomas. And now through the final corner of the 59, putting the power down. Trying to get a good exit. Now coming up to the line. Where will this put Hezzy Thomas? He goes up to 9th. Ahead of Charlier, ahead of Klein, and ahead of Baptist. Reese Simmons gets a good lap. Up to 3rd, pushes Scarlett Brown down to 4th, Screech to 5th. Chase Donnelly also on the previous lap moves up to 6th place. So there are improvements absolutely everywhere going on right now. With the track conditions still fast, the lap times may get quicker and quicker yet. If those conditions do improve to optimum. Natasan now, can he get a valid lap on the board? He can. Goes inside the top 10 up to 6th. With a 133.992 on the board from the Camaro. Now can Charlier respond and get back inside the top 10? Needs about 1.2 seconds to get ahead of Josh Ransom. 4/10 to get a Hezzy Thomas for 11th. And he slots ahead of Hezzy Thomas for the time being, and that is very tight out of the pits with the Porsche. Now John Baptist closing out the lap in the number 7 Trinity Porsche, needs 2/10 to get ahead of Sarah Klein. And he gets a lot more than that, moves up to 12th ahead of Charlier as well, with Hezzy Thomas improving past Charlier up to 11th. Tai Chin remains at the top. That 131.5 still the best lap of the session. Duarte Manhita in second, Reese Simmons in third, Scarlett Brown in fourth, Screech fifth, Natasan sixth, Donnelly seventh, Rally Dutchy in eighth, making it 3 Camaros in a row from sixth to eighth. Chris Saunderson in ninth, Josh Ransom rounds out the top 10, Hezzy Thomas 11th, John Baptist in 12th, Charlie 13th, Sarah Klein 14th, Hirosh in 15th, Vladis in 16th, and he is the last of those to set a valid lap as we have less than 5 minutes left in the first qualifying session of the night. Let's see where Chris Saunderson can go with this lap. Just one corner left. He's got the Porsche in front. Might give him a little bit of a slipstream coming up to the line. I do believe that it's the 609 of Kanoko just hopping out of the way as Saunderson comes up to the line and improves past 2 Camaros up to 7th place. Welcome in all the chatters. Hope you guys are doing well, having a good Monday so far. Happy to have you here. Oh, with Saunderson sliding out of Pilgrims, or excuse me, Druids. Happy to have you here with us. As Manhita looks for an improvement, trying to get the AMG across the line, already has a front row starting position, but wants to be in the top spot, and improves his personal best by about 1/10 of a second. Gets to within 3/10 of Tai Chin's time at the top of the charts. Still has 3.5 minutes left. Find an improvement on that lap. Sarah Klein gets a big improvement on the board, slides up to 11th, ahead of Hezzy Thomas and John Baptist. As the BMW of Charlier to the line once more. It is looking like it's going to be a tight battle for that last spot inside that top 10. Charlier up a few places to 12th. 1/10 behind Sarah Klein, 3/10 behind Josh Ransom for a spot in the top 10. Now the AMG of Reese Simmons picked up a couple of podiums last week. A race win in race 2 being one of those, currently in third. To start the grid in race number 1, can Reese find a big improvement here? Coming up to the line, gets a personal best on the board, but still needs about 5/10, half a second, if you will, to get up to Duarte Manhita and challenge for a position on the front row. Welcome in, Eric. Hope you're doing well. Happy Monday to you. Alexander Hirosh in the Swifts Racing number 17 BMW as time is running out in the qualifying session. Under 2 minutes to go. And that is a big improvement from Hirosh. Improves his personal best by about 2 seconds there to get within a second and 1/10 of John Baptist, but unfortunately the BMW going into the gravel there to end the session for the number 17 as Kanoko has a valid lap on the board, but looking for an improvement, pushing on, and into the gravel goes the 609 Porsche. Less than 1 minute to go. It is do or die laps for the rookies here in the first qualifying session of the night around Brands Hatch in round number 2. 20-minute race to come. after the grid is set. As Kanoko goes around and enters sector number 2, Natasan looking to finish the lap here, currently in 6th. Needs about half a second to get into the top 5. And unfortunately unable to find a personal best on that lap, about a 10th down on his best time of the session so far. And with the time hitting 0, it is now the final efforts remaining for the drivers here. Try and get their qualifying laps done and dusted. As Tai Chin on provisional pole, but looking to build the gap at the front, and does just so by about another 1/10 of a second. Improves the time at the top to a 1:31.440. Lewis Screech gets an improvement at the last lap, gets up to 4th place in the Alpine. And with all of the rest of the drivers unable to find valid laps, that is the end of the qualifying session. That brings us on to the first 20-minute race of the night here around Brands Hatch for round number 2. Lots of different colors on the grid. Some drivers making their season debuts this evening. Let's get ourselves familiar with the starting grid for race number 1. On pole position, as we saw last week, Tai Chin continuing the dominant form in the qualifying. The 54 KTM in the Valvoline True Racing colors, starting from first. Joining Chin on the front row, you've got Duarte Manhita, the season debut of the Portuguese driver. He is in the number 27 OnlyFans AMG, and with a good front row start on the season debut. Reese Simmons, Callie, welcome to the podium. Welcome back, I should say. You're back for 27 months. Quite a long time. Thanks for the continued support. As Reese Simmons starts from 3rd. Race winner in race 2 last week. Looking to continue the good form. Lewis Screech, season debut for the Hamburger Racing Alpine in the number 52. Starting from the back of the 2nd row. Scarlett Brown in a top 5 spot in the number 42 Trans Rights X Tan B Performance Porsche. Prakash Natasan will be alongside Scarlett in the number 82 Dark Side Racing Camaro. The Audi of Chris Saunderson starts from 7th place, the number 18 Allison Racing, looking to use the race pace and get into potentially a top 5 position. Chase Donnelly in the Team Go 257 Camaro. I do believe season debut for this Camaro, starting from 8th place. Then Rally Dutchy in the Street Animals 621 Camaro, starting from the front of the 5th row in 9th. Josh Ransom rounds out the top 10 in the 325 TVR Porsche. Times are very tight between all these drivers outside the top 10 here. And I should say they were just outside the top 10, with Sarah Klein being the first of those in 11th in the 904 Trans Rights X Tan B Performance KTM. Alongside will be Austin Charlier in the Firebrand number 53 BMW. Next, you got Hezzy Thomas starting from 13th in the number 59 Dog Box Racing AMG. Then in 14th, John Baptist in the number 7 Trinity Racing Porsche, with Alexander Hirosh behind in the number 17, Swith's Racing BMW starts from 15th. The back of the 8th row will be Harrison Vladis in the Valvoline True Racing number 2 KTM. Next is the 609 of Tenno Kanoko in the Hapu Foundation Porsche, starting from 17th. And Chris Douglas out of the qualifying session in the Generation AMR Super Racing 718. Aston starts from 18th position. Formation lap underway. Tai Chin going through the first sector, getting the tires warmed up, with Rally Dutchy being given some energy. Let's see what Rally Dutchy can do from 8th place. Street Animals livery looking nice on the V8 powered Camaro as they go down Pilgrim's Drop, weaving side to side, trying to generate any temperature in those tires. In these GT4s, there are no tire warmers coming out of the pits, so it's up to the drivers to get that rubber up to the right operating window before the start of the race. When the green flag drops, time begins to tick, and we will have 20 minutes of action in round number 2. $18 cars starting tonight. Scarlett Brown, unfortunately, coming back to the pits. Something happening there to the number 42. Was going to start from 5th, but unfortunately there, having to start from the pit lane for the number 42. As the grid gets set in zipper formation, we get ourselves ready for the race. Drivers hopefully got their cars in a good operating window here to be able to race into turn number 1. And out of turn 1 into 2 might be a great overtaking opportunity into the hairpin at Druids. Let's see what happens here in race number 1 of round 2 for the GT4 rookies.
Green light, go, go, go.
Thank you for the followers that are now following along. Here we go, 20 minutes on the clock, and away we go. The KTM getting a great launch, the two AMGs nearly side by side, but it's the Alpine that's going to challenge down the inside for a podium position. Down the inside goes Screech. Simmons giving plenty of room down the inside, and there's a little bit of contact. Now Simmons has the inside as they head down the hill into Graham Hill Bend, and it is looking nice and tidy for the leaders. Bit further back, Josh Ransom gets a pretty decent start, up a couple of places now, up to 8th for the Porsche, as he looks to chase down Rally Dutchy, also up a couple of places. And in fact, it's Rally Dutchy challenging Prakash Natasan for a spot in 6th place down the inside of Hawthorne's. We go, very quick corner, very tricky to get the move done, but Rally Dutchy makes it look very easy, very well done, but can he hold on to it? Runs a little bit wide, opens up the inside for Natasan, and the number 82 slips on through and takes the place back. Rally Dutchy braking on the grass, not helping the Camaro slow down, and losing even more places, having to take the escape onto the grass on the exit of turn 7. Reese Simmons able to get through Duarte Manahita for 2nd place, so the 64 now leads the pair of AMGs after the opening lap in their efforts to try and challenge Tai Chin for the race lead. It is very tight from Reese Simmons to Screech there, who's just outside of the podium places. Chris Saunderson got an amazing start. He is all the way up to 5th. With Rally Dutchy now under pressure from Sarah Klein, having to get by the KTM and back up to 9th for the 621 after running wide at turn 7, as the positions to make up once more. Chris Donnelly, the Camaro directly ahead. Thought she made a great move in Hawthorne's on the previous lap. But out of turn 6, just couldn't keep the car on track, just losing a little bit of time. And here at 7, just braking on the grass ever so slightly. You can see where the tire tracks led the Camaro there into the gravel. But great control from Dutchy to keep the Camaro in one piece and out of the wall, as the two Camaros look to catch up to the Porsche of Josh Ransom in 7th place. And Josh Ransom's made up quite some places as well. He started from 10th, up 3 places to 7th. Manhita closer on this lap to challenging Reese Simmons for 2nd. He's already having a fake look down the inside. He thought about it, but just not close enough to throw that attacking move just yet, as the pair of AMGs look to escape from the Alpine behind. Tai Chin is going to be quite relieved to see the two cars battling behind, already able to pull out a 2-second gap over the two AMGs. Duarte Manhita in 3rd with Reese Simmons ahead in 2nd, but a much tidier exit for Duarte Manhita. They're going to run side-by-side down Pilgrim's Drop into Hawthorne's. Reese Simmons down the inside for the defensive line to try and hold off the attack by Manhita, but he's got the over-under, and into turn 6, it's Manhita who's got the inside, but now the over-under is going to open right back up for Reese Simmons, and Reese Simmons is going to take the inside line into turn 7. A great racing from the two AMGs, and Duarte Manhita getting bumped into the gravel, and the Alpine looking to take advantage as Manhita goes back onto the racing line. No room given for the Alpine to go through. So with all this battling going on, Tai Chin pulling out another 2 seconds in that lap alone. The gap is now up to 4 from the race leader to the 3 cars here battling for the final podium places. And after the pit lane start, Scarlett Brown up to 14th on the back of Hezzy Thomas. Yeah, perhaps Porkchop, you're right, maybe just didn't have the quali fuel still in the car and wanted to get it refueled in the pit lane rather than having to stop in the pits during the race. But nonetheless, making good progress early on is Scarlett Brown. Up 5 places and looking to take the position away from Hezzy Thomas up ahead in the 59 Dogbox Racing AMG. Chris Douglas with a good start from the back of the grid as well. He did serve a quali ban for race number 1, so that was why he was unable to take part in the qualifying. Charlie A runs a little bit deep on the exit of 7, and Chris Douglas gets an easy position there up to 11th, ahead of the BMW, who's now under pressure from Scarlett Brown, who was able to get by Hezzy Thomas, and now applying the pressure to the Firebrand driver, Austin Charlier, running a little bit wide, the inside given, and Rally Dutchy back to the pit lane. So Scarlett Brown now up to 11th place, Austin Charlier to 12th, and Rally Dutchy unfortunately dropping back and giving those positions. Scarlett Brown running wide on the exit of turn 1. The inside line wanted to be taken by Austin Charlier, but Hezzy Thomas was there, and the position gained by Hezzy Thomas, and John Baptist also trying to sweep on through. Austin Charlier just getting put in all the wrong places, just couldn't defend. Excuse me, couldn't defend from the AMG behind, with Hezzy just taking a great line into turn 2. But Scarlett Brown runs wide and gives up the 2 places to the AMG, to the BMW, and potentially to John Baptist as well. who has the outside but has the speed advantage. Scarlet Brown just has to tuck in behind, with John Baptist getting a great run out of the corner, but now into turn 6. There might have been a small tap on the back of the number 7, who tries to defend to the inside, but Scarlet Brown was there. A little bit of nudge given. Both cars still pointed in the correct direction, and Charlie A once again drifting wide at turn 7. That BMW just can't find the grip there on the corner exit and just keeps drifting into the grass. Oh, and Chris Saunderson in the pits as well. There's a lot of damage to the front end of that Audi. Chase Donnelly keeping Josh Ransom in touching distance in the 325 Porsche up ahead. Josh Ransom, though, looking pretty handy in that position, being ahead. Drifting a touch wide, though. Might allow Donnelly to use that V8 power to close in on the Porsche. Let's keep our eyes focused on this battle for what is now a spot in the top 10, with Saunderson and Dutchy returning to the pits. Hezzy Thomas now has 10th place. He leads from Scarlet Brown, who gets up to 11th, past the Porsche of John Baptist, and Austin Charlier dropping back to 13th. I have a feeling these battles aren't going anywhere anytime soon. This is what the back of Hezzy Thomas's car is looking at, with Scarlet Brown trying to close in after starting from the pits. Top 10 position would be quite handy for Scarlet Brown here. As we are just halfway into the race. So much action so far. Scarlet Brown making up so many places just halfway into the race. 10 minutes left for the Porsche to try and make up even more ground. Getting a great exit here. Lining up the move. Side by side they go. And that's Austin Charlier in the back. Going drifting out of turn 3. As into turn 4, the Porsche has the inside. Gets the position on the AMG, but the AMG gets a good run on the corner exit as they head down Pilgrim's Drop. Will Hezzy Thomas throw a move? He's lining it up down the inside of Hawthorne's, but not that heavy enough of a braking zone for Hezzy Thomas to try and take advantage of that overspeed advantage. So Scarlet now has a position in the top 10. Coming from the pits, Chris Douglas up ahead after starting from the back of the grid. Oh my goodness! Drifting on corner exit there. Same with Hezzy Thomas trying to keep it close. Tai Chin leads the way with a 4.7 second gap to Reese Simmons, who is defending mightily against fellow AMG driver Duarte Manhita in 3rd. Then you got Lewis Screech in 4th. Prakash Natasan rounds out the top 5. Josh Ransom in 6th. Chase Donnelly in 7th. Sarah Klein 8th. Chris Douglas in 9th. Ahead of Scarlet Brown, who rounds out the top 10. Then you got Hezzy Thomas in 11th. John Baptist 12th. Austin Charlier 13th. Alexander Hirosh in 14th, Rally Dutchy 15th after a visit to the pit lane. Harrison Vladis 16th, Tenno Kanoko in 17th, and Chris Saunderson in 18th, but still running out on track, also having a visit down the pit lane. Here's a look at the gap between the two AMGs. Duarte Manhita closing it right back up. Looking to get back into the position that he started the race. Reese Simmons a little bit slow into turn 1. Manhita gets a great exit. Simmons takes the defensive line, forces Manhita to go the long way around. He's going to try to set up an over-under move here, but going down the hill into turn 3, it's going to be very difficult to line it up, but he does it, and he's going to have to try to keep it on track. Runs a little bit wide, and into the grass goes the number 27, the 64 of Reese Simmons, able to hold on to second place. The two AMGs evenly matched here in the straight line speed department going down Pilgrim's Drop. Duarte Manhita is just going to have to find a place to get on by. We saw them battling through this part of the track and just swapping places, with the outside in move being very effective. Oh goodness! The two AMGs go into the back of the number 2 KTM! And that allows Lewis Screech to close in a little bit closer. But Reese Simmons maintains position ahead of Manhita, who's now got a pretty significant amount of front-end damage after going into the wall. And how about this for a 3-car battle? Scarlett Brown down the inside of the same corner where we just saw the contact with the KTM. Scarlett Brown trying to hold on to that inside line. Going into turn number 8, Hezzy Thomas with almost a really great late move to try and challenge to the inside. But it's Scarlett Brown who gets a good exit in the Porsche compared to Chris Douglas in the Aston Martin. But Douglas goes deep. He goes deep at the final corner into the gravel, giving up 2 places to Scarlett Brown and Hezzy Thomas. So Scarlett Brown now up to 9th, Hezzy Thomas into 10th. And John Baptist almost able to take advantage. There's contact up ahead. Sarah Klein goes spinning into the gravel. Scarlett Brown off in the middle of the track, and Hezzy Thomas into the gravel. Let's see if we can take a look at what happened here. So we just saw these 2 cars go into turn 1. Brown ahead of Hezzy Thomas. And then, oh, the KTM was just stranded in the middle of the track. And Scarlett Brown, a pretty blind entry going down the hill there. Couldn't see the KTM parked up on the racing line. Hezzy Thomas was able to take evasive action and go into the gravel and not go into the wall at all. And Manhita going slowly. Saunderson into the wall, trying to take evasive action. It is gone. Absolutely haywire here in the closing 5 minutes of the race. Even more front-end damage to Duarte Manhita's AMG as he falls now back to 5th, giving the position to Natasan. Screech up to 3rd. So the Alpine on debut having a 3rd place finish as it stands. Still a long way to go, and we have seen absolutely crazy stuff happen in just the last minute alone. So John Baptist trying to close in on Chris Douglas for what is now 8th place. Chase Donnelly got ahead of Josh Ransom for 6th. So the Camaro leads from the 325, and the 325 has a problem. The Porsche is in the wall. Trying to reverse it back. And get back onto the racing surface. Josh Ransom slides outside of the top 10. Hezzy Thomas got ahead of Scarlett Brown after taking that evasive action on the previous lap, and I agree, that was very well done from Hezzy to just go into the gravel and then also just be able to control the car through the gravel and keep it out of the wall. Very bouncy on the apex of turn 7, but keeping it under control. And once again, taking the curbs very heavily on the apex, as that is John Baptist getting very close to Chris Douglas for 7th place. As Manhita now is behind Donnelly. So Chase Donnelly up to a top 5 position in the 257 Camaro. Can Chris Douglas and John Baptist catch up to the wounded Mercedes? The gap's about 12 seconds, but Duarte Manhita going about 10 seconds slower per lap with all the damage sustained to the front of his AMG. About 2.5 seconds behind John Baptist. You've got Scarlett Brown already on the back of Hezzy Thomas for what is now 9th place, and Hezzy Thomas going a little bit slow through turn 5. Scarlett Brown in the much more nimble Porsche taps the back of the AMG and goes spinning into the wall. The Porsche with some side damage there for sure, hitting the barrier. As Hezzy Thomas escapes up the road, Josh Ransom closing in on Scarlett Brown on 2 wheels, taking the apex heavily at turn 7. Oh, and cheers, Myonex. Cheers, Sarah, for the hydrate. Missed that earlier on. Sparkling water, the cold drink of choice, accompanying some hot tea, as per usual. Tai Chen with a pretty commanding performance at the front. And into the final seconds of the race we go, and into the zeros, and the checkered flag will wave for Tai Chen, who takes a 2nd win of the season here for the first race in round number 2. Reese Simmons takes another podium position for the season, with Lewis Screech making a podium finish on debut in the number 52 Alpine. Prakash Natasan next across the line in the number 82 Camaro, finishing up in 4th place. Chris Saunderson takes the checkered flag in 16th, just ahead there of Prakash. Chase Donnelly gets a spot in the top 5 in the 257 Camaro, making it 2 Camaros in a row there, 4th and 5th. Duarte Manhita able to hold off Chris Douglas, or is he? It's going to be close coming up to the line. That wounded Mercedes does take 6th across the line. Douglas defends from Baptist, so it's 7th for Douglas, 8th for John Baptist there going into the gravel, and Hezzy Thomas defending from Scarlett Brown to take 9th. And once again, a good top 10 finish for Hezzy Thomas. Scarlett Brown from the pits to a great top 10 position. Josh Ransom in 11th across the line. Austin Charlier finishing in 12th, with Alexander Hirosh in 13th place. Sarah Klein next across the line in 14th in the 904. KTM Rally Dutchy in 15th. Saunderson in 16th, we saw earlier. And last to take the checkered flag is going to be Tenno Kanoko. And by the looks of it, that Porsche is carrying a good amount of suspension damage, with some tires getting... tire marks just getting absolutely thrown on the road there. But Kanoko across the line. That will conclude race number 1. Tai Chin on top. Reese Simmons 2nd, Lewis Screech in 3rd, Natasan 4th, Donnelly in 5th, Duarte Manhita in 6th, Chris Douglas 7th, John Baptist 8th, Hezzy Thomas in 9th, Scarlett Brown 10th, Josh Ransom 11th, Austin Charlier in 12th, Alexander Hirosh 13th. Then you have Klein in 14th, followed by Rally Dutchy, Chris Saunderson, Harrison Vladis, and Tenno Kanoko. That's your final standings for race number 1. Let's do it again. 15 minutes of qualifying coming up right now. Or race number 2. See, Pork Chop's got a nice cold ale. Sounds refreshing. Can't be drinking on the job, though, you know. For me, at least. Everybody else, do what you like. Some spicy pork rinds? Yeah, it makes sense, Mr. Pork Chop. Mr. Dr. Pork Chop. Mr. Dr. Professor Pork Chop. If you will. Got some lemonade getting drunk in the chat as well. Congrats, Hezzy. Good position in the top 10 there. Well done, my friend. Josh Ransom leads the way on the outlaps in the 325 Porsche, looking to get the lap nice and early here. Temperature's pretty high. Track has evolved now to optimum conditions. Right on board with the Porsche. Get a perspective of how it looks from the drivers. Although we are sitting in the passenger seat. Provides a good view outside the front of the Porsche Cayman 718 GT4. As Josh Ransom finishes his outlap and looks to get on the board for his first timed lap of the session. From the onboard, you can really appreciate the camber, the elevation changes around Brands Hatch, much more than you can from the trackside cameras. As we shoot back down the hill out of Druids into the pretty quick left-hander, just keeping it within track limits there, is the 325 Porsche. As now back up the hill we go. And climbing up turn 4. Little kink to the right and back down the hill through Pilgrim's Drop and into the quick right-hander at Hawthorne's. Dab of brakes, down a gear, trying to maintain all of the speed, and it's going to be the same situation here through turn number 6. Dab of brakes, down a gear, back on the power, and down the hill we go before rising into turn 7. A dab of brakes, down a gear, sling it to the inside, don't run too wide. We saw a couple of drivers in the race dip a wheel into the grass there, and it's very slidey through turn 8 to close out the lap. He runs a little bit wide, and now just one braking zone left for Josh Ransom, and a dab of brakes, down a gear, as is the situation through so many of these right-hand corners. And now it's pedal to the metal, up to the line, and it's going to be a 1:34.767 on the board for Josh Ransom in his 325 Porsche. Kudos to Ransom for keeping the lap valid, giving us a good demonstration of how to take the 2.43 mile layout around Brands Hatch. As Scarlett Brown is now the top Porsche, 1:33.387, the time to beat John Baptist in second, Josh Ransom in third, making it a Porsche 1-2-3 in the earlier stages of the qualifying, and Chris Saunderson here to spoil that as he goes to third in his Audi. Matasan with a top 5 finish in race number 1. Can he get a top 5 start for race number 2? Coming up to the line is the number 82 Camaro, and he moves up to 7th place, gets a valid lap on the board, crucially, and now he's got the lap in. Now it is time to push and look for improvements. Chris Douglas, no quali ban here for race number 2. He is able to take part. Let's see what the pace of the 718 Camaro is going to be in this qualifying session. Gets a lap on the board to 7th, gets ahead of Charlier, about a second behind Rally Dutchie in 6th, who's back in the pits after setting a valid lap already. Chin, a little behind Chris Douglas on this lap. Right on board with the roll cage that is the KTM with a shell around it. Very odd driving perspective with that windshield curving all the way around the driver. As Tai Chin pushing the limits of the track and just a little bit too far, invalidating it on that run there, getting pretty close to the back of Chris Douglas as well. Just up ahead on a flying lap. Austin Charlier to the line, moves up a place, gets a new personal best on the board for the number 53 BMW. As Duarte Manhita improves up to provisional pole position, a 132.895. The time to chase for the rest of the grid, the number 27 showing the pace here in the qualifying session. Lewis Screech took the final podium position in race number 1, started from 4th, moved up a position during the race. Can't Screech start any higher than 4th here in race number 2. The lone Alpine on the grid. That title used to belong to Dr. Porkchop, but then he switched over to the Aston Martin, and then that spot now being filled by the number 52 here. Getting through the Camaro of, Chase Donnelly. As Screech in the Hamburger Racing Alpine trying to get a valid lap on the board here. How high will this one put the Alpine? It goes to the front row, about a 10.5 behind Duarte Manhita's time, ahead of Scarlett Brown by about 3.5 tenths of a second. And just like that, Tai Chin takes provisional pole away by 1.1 seconds, a 131.7 on the board from the 54 KTM. Scarlett Brown trying to get an improvement. Currently sitting at the back of the second row, needs about half a second to get onto that front row, and does just so. Improves past Duarte Manhita to get up to second place, about a second behind Tai Chin's provisional pole time. And here comes Reese Simmons, second place finisher in race number 1, the 64 AMG, coming up to the line. And it's provisional pole for the 64, a 31.57 on the board from Reese Simmons. Sarah Klein in 15th position, about 1.5 seconds behind Austin Charlier's time in 14th. But it's looking like a pretty handy lap for Sarah Klein at the moment. How high can the 904 KTM go? Coming up to the line and does get ahead of Charlier. Moves up to 14th position. Now needs about half a second to get up to Rally Dutchie's time in 13th. Saunderson with 2 corners, now 1 corner to go. Currently sitting in 6th. Looking for a spot in the top 5. Needs about 0.6 of a second to pass the time set by Lewis Screech in the 52 Alpine. Coming up to the line, the Audi gets a personal best on the board, but not quite enough time gained to move up a position there for Chris Saunderson. As the Audi returns to the pits, Chase Donnelly really pushing the limits of the apex there. Jumping through turn 7, slowing him down a little bit in the process. As out of the final corner, the Camaro putting the power down. Needs about 0.9 of a second to get up to the time of Saunderson, who has got that improvement on the last lap. And no improvement there. 0.005 of a second off of their previous personal best in the Camaro. We're right on board with Portuguese driver Duarte Manita. Close out the lap. He's into sector 3. Oh, and he just went wide, invalidating the lap there. And running a little slow at turn 7, perhaps just getting himself set up for another run here. Under 3 minutes to go in the second qualifying session of the evening, or morning, or night, or afternoon, wherever you may be joining us from. So Manita across the line to start another lap. Lewis Screech approaching a bit of company up ahead as he goes in search of a personal best, with the Aston Martin directly in front. Perhaps giving him a little bit of a slipstream there, but running wide is Chris Douglas, who currently sits in 12th place. As Screech improves up to 3rd, gets a new personal best on the board by about half a second. Improves past Scarlett Brown and Duarte Manita. BMW of Austin Charlier, 1 corner to go before he sets off on his final flying lap attempt with under 75 seconds remaining in the session. Looking like a decent lap here for Charlier. Can he get an improvement on the board? It's a big one, all the way up to 12th. And look at the times there between Josh Ransom and Chris Douglas, separated by just 0.3 of a second. Not even 0.3, 2.5 of a second. Manita gets an improvement, goes up to the 2nd row, pushes Scarlett Brown down to 5th. And Tai Chin closing the lap in the KTM. Needs about 0.1 to get onto that provisional pole position spot, currently being held by Reese Simmons. Out of the final corner. Blasting to the line. Isn't going to be enough time gained for Tai Chin. Oh, not nearly enough. It's so close. A 10th gained, but still needs 37 milliseconds. But luckily for the KTM, across the line before the checkered flag begins to wave now, as there are now zeros on the qualifying time. Those still on a valid lap can finish it now. Number 17. It's the oh my goodness. Yes, that is the BMW of Hirosh. Gets a lap on the board right at the end when it counts, up to 16th. Charlier into the top 10. Huge improvements on the final 2 laps from the BMW. And Austin Charlier, representing the Firebrand team here, gets a spot inside the top 10. And Manhita, with another improvement at the end, gets up to 3rd, pushes the Alpine down to 4th. Natasan gets an improvement, but can't gain a position ahead of Saunderson. But he will be the lead Camaro, unless Chase Donnelly has anything to say about it. Coming up to the line, gets a personal best on the board, but about 2/10, they are exactly 2/10 behind the Camaro of Prakash Natasan. The pair of Porsches, John Baptiste and Josh Ransom, going through the final corner. John Baptiste in 9th, Josh Ransom in 12th. Can the two get any sort of improvements as they get up to the line? None for Ransom. Baptiste up to 8th. And he will split the 2 Camaros as Hezzy Thomas qualifies in 13th place. Grid is set once again. Some drivers in the same places, others finding some improvements in that qualifying session. So let's remind ourselves of how the grid will shape up for race number 2. On pole position, you have Reese Simmons in the Skyline by Tan B64 AMG, starting from the top spot. In second place, we've got Tai Chin in the KTM, the number 54 Valvoline True Racing, still getting a front row start here in race number 2. Duarte Manhita starts from 3rd in the OnlyFans number 27 AMG. Lewis Screech starts from 4th for the 2nd race in a row in the Hamburger Racing number 52 Alpine. Can he convert it to another podium finish in race number 2? Scarlett Brown with a top 5 start once again, hopefully not starting from the pit lane here in race number 2. As Scarlett Brown in the Transrights X-Tan-B Performance Porsche made up some good ground, coming from the pits to finish inside the top 10. Chris Saunderson with some unlucky moments for him, saw him take a trip down the pit lane. Starts from 6th though here in race number 2 in the number 18 Allison Racing Audi. Prakash Natasan lines up in 7th in the number 82 Darkside Racing Camaro. He will be the lead Camaro on the grid. John Baptiste next on the 4th row. He is in the Trinity Racing number 7 Porsche. Chase Donnelly in the 257 Team Go Camaro starts from 9th place. Rounding out the top 10, getting those laps in right at the end. Big improvements from Austin Charlier in the number 53 Firebrand BMW. Up next in 11th, Chris Douglas in the Generation AMR Super Racing 718 Aston Martin. Alongside him on the 6th row is Josh Ransom in the 325 TVR Porsche. Next is Hezzy Thomas looking for another top 10 finish here tonight. Starts from 13th in race number 2 in the number 59 Dogbox Racing AMG. Next you have Rally Dutchy in 14th in the 621 Street Animals Camaro, with Sarah Klein starting from 15th in the Transrights X-Tan-B Performance 904 KTM. The 17 BMW of Alexander Haroche in the Swiss Racing livery starting from 16th. And the last row of the grid, Harrison Vladis leads from 17th in the number 2 Valvoline True Racing KTM. Last but not least, Tenno Kanoko in the 609 getting underway for the formation lap in the Hoppo Foundation 609 Porsche. Good racing, nice and tight, lots of action in race 1. Oh, race 2 bring here. Formation lap underway, 4 p.m. local time already. The cones getting taken out by Duarte Manhita. As the grid gets rolling on their way, getting their tires warmed up. No tire blankets, as we mentioned earlier. These GT4s have to get all their tires, or have to get all their temperature generated on their own, weaving side to side, getting it from the brakes as well. And so that's why you're seeing a good majority of the grid beginning to weave side to side, as Alexander Haroche is doing here in the number 17 BMW. Into the final set of corners we go. The grid's going to get lined up side by side in zipper formation. No pit lane starts for the 18 car grid in race number 2. Conditions are looking nice out there for some racing. At the track, about an hour away from London, and the rolling hills in the countryside of Great Britain. And onto the main straight we go, side by side, all the way from 1st to 18th, waiting for the green light to release us for race number 2. 20 minutes ticking away. Duarte Manhita looks to get a good start on the board. Scarlett Brown already down the inside of the Alpine for 4th, and it might be another position gained for Scarlett Brown as Tai Chin runs a little bit wide. Duarte Manhita moves up a place. Scarlett Brown looking down the inside and looking for a podium position as the KTM gets shuffled onto the grass, and the Alpine now also looking to take advantage of that, but it's Manhita that runs a little bit wide on the exit of turn 4, slowing down the rest of the pack. The Alpine of Screech looking to make a move down the inside of turn 4, and it's going to be a drag race all the way up the hill and then back down Pilgrim's Drop. The running wide is not going to help Tai Chin in this case, as the KTM has to tuck back in behind the Alpine. Saunderson battling with Prakash Natasan, who was able to get him at the start. As they continue to battle, the KTM thinking about having a look up ahead, but Saunderson holding on to 6th place, but he runs wide out of turn 6. Will this give an opportunity for the Camaros behind to challenge the Audi? So Reese Simmons hanging on to the lead from pole position. Duarte Manhita up a place to 2nd. Scarlett Brown up a couple positions to 3rd. Lewis Screech remains in 4th, with Tai Chin dropping back 3 places to 5th behind the Alpine. The 2 Camaros battling here for 7th, with Natasan ahead of Donnelly and Chris Saunderson in the Audi ahead of them in 6th. John Baptist and Josh Ransom in the pair of Porsches round out the top 10 with Chris Donnelly looking to get the move done around the outside. Very tricky to get it done. Now the over-under opportunity is on for the Camaro, but Prakash Natasan having the inside line covered off there, has the position covered for the meantime, but it's Chase Donnelly who gets a good exit out of turn 3 and into turn 4. Down the inside he goes. Can he keep it and hold on to the position? Able to keep it on track. Prakash Natasan a bit hesitant to go on the power and run wide, leaving plenty of room for Chase Donnelly. Good respect between the two Camaros there, as Chase Donnelly now up to 7th, Natasan down to 8th. We got a fun fact requested. I've got a fun fact. After we take a look at this battle between Tai Chin and Lewis Screech, and the pair of them getting pretty close to Scarlett Brown up ahead as well, while the two AMGs in the lead, pulling out a 2.7 second gap over the Porsche in 3rd place. Two AMGs beginning to get very close to each other as they continue, or I should say begin to get the race started with each other. Separated out a little bit at the start, but now Manhita firmly on the back of Reese Simmons and throwing a feint down the inside, and Reese Simmons can't close off the inside with the nose of Manhita being there. He tucks back into the slipstream, with Reese Simmons firmly defending the inside line going into turn 5. And Reese Simmons hanging on to the race lead, with Duarte Manhita applying the pressure now, looking to challenge and get into the race lead. It's impressive that while they continue to battle and go side by side out of turn 8 into turn 9, they're still able to pull out more of a gap to Scarlett Brown behind. It's now 3.3 seconds to the Porsche, despite all the side by side action that we're seeing. And through the final corner, Reese Simmons able to pull out a pretty comfortable gap to not allow Duarte Manhita to throw a move on the inside of Druids. Tai Chin, though, closing in on the Alpine as it's a battle between the lightweights. Welcome in, IB Schofield and Raiders. Hope you guys had a good stream. You join us for the final 15 minutes of race number 2 and round number 2 around Brands Hatch for our GT4 Monday Rookies spring season getting underway here. 2nd week of action. Race number 2 of 2 tonight. Tai Chin lining up the move. The Alpine has the inside line, but the KTM looking to keep the grip around Hawthorne's, but not quite able to do so. And we'll have to continue to hold and look for a way by the Alpine. We'll tune back into the AMG battle. The fun fact I have for you is that while the circuit of Brands Hatch that we know and love in the shape that it is now first opened in 1950, and then it evolved into what its current shape is in about 2003, there was actually a race held way before that on the farmlands that used to exist in this area in 1926, and it was just a good old bicycle race held very regional, nothing world famous as that Brands Hatch turned into, as Duarte Manhita catches a slide exiting turn 2. Not going to help his chances of keeping the gap close to the AMG in front. But importantly for him, keeping it out of the wall. And yeah, look at that. The farmland used for some mushrooms. Somebody add more fun facts on top of that. As the Alpine and the KTM go through Chris Douglas, who has had to take a visit down the pit lane, it looks like, to repair some damage. So the 718 a little out of position compared to the rest of the field. So unlike a lot of other British tracks, this one doesn't have so much history to do with the World War. Other British tracks, Silverstone used to be an airport, I should say, for the RAF. Donington Park actually existed as a track before the war, but then it was turned into sort of a garage for army vehicles and such. More of a storage ground than anything official like Silverstone, where planes and stuff took off. And then the other track featured in ACC Snetterton was also used during the war. There was a air hangar that they had nearby, and the Snetterton track built on the grounds surrounding that airstrip. And perfect timing to get that onboard lap in. Here we go. My goodness, sorry, missed that notification. Either welcome new follower or welcome to the podium. I believe welcome new follower. Thanks for joining us tonight. About halfway into race number 2. As we ride on board with 5th place sitter Tai Chin in the 54 KTM, looking to get by the Alpine of Lewis Screech, ahead there in 4th place. And a little bit wide out of turn 4, a bit of grass getting kicked up ahead. Tai Chin continuing to push on, try and get close to the Alpine, really pushing oversteering on corner exit at turn 6 as they head up to turn 7. That is the battle of Sarah Klein and Tenno Kanoko for 16th and 17th up ahead. Let's see how they're going to behave with the two battles happening simultaneously on track here. The Alpine able to get through the KTM and the Porsche. Unfortunately for Tai Chin, he got a little bit stuck here in the battle of Kanoko and Sarah Klein. That's just what happens sometimes when there's a bit of blue flag action. But all of the cars still going and circulating, most importantly. So Tai Chin now a bit of a gap to make up to Lewis Screech. A good amount of time left in the race for Tai to do just that. In the battle of the two Porsches, Josh Ransom! Can he keep it up? Track? No! Going into the barrier in the 3.25. Right as he was getting onto the back of John Baptist. Josh Ransom with a huge snap moment out of turn 4. Or turn 3, excuse me. Goes into the barrier quite heavily with that right front. Add that to the commentator's curse counter right as we tune in with Josh Ransom. Had to have a bit of a moment, and just like that, battle is off. And there's the 609 in the barriers as well, getting back on track between turns 7 and 8. Pinocchio was battling with Sarah Klein in that battle for 16th. Unfortunately, the 609 into the wall as Tai Chin continuing to really push on in the KTM. Already on the back of the Alpine after just a lap. So Tai Chin really showing that he's got the speed to close in on the Alpine, but as we hear so often in racing, catching up to someone is one thing, overtaking them is completely another, and it's going to be the same situation for Tai Chin as the number 54 continues to stare at the back of the 52 Alpine. These two, though, getting pretty close to Scarlett Brown, with potentially now a 3-car battle picking up for that final podium position in the final 6 minutes of the race. About 6 seconds up the road from that 3-car battle, we've got the pair of AMGs still bumper to bumper with each other, with Duarte Manhita trying to challenge Reese Simmons for the race lead that the 64 AMG has held from the start of the race. Through Pilgrim's Drop and into turn 5. Duarte continuing to push on as we saw Tai Chin do, just dipping a couple of wheels into the grass on corner exits. If you do it right, it can get you a little bit of time, but if you do it wrong, it can really send the car spinning, and it is very hard to catch, especially when any of the tires are on the grass. Anita really pushing on, trying to carry all of the speed out of the final corner. Reese Simmons taking a much more tidy line to the apex. Showing that after 10 laps of racing, they can confidently maintain that gap out in front. As Scarlett Brown falls behind Lewis Screech, so that final podium position now goes to the Alpine. See if we can take a look and see what happened and how how Lewis was able to get that place away from the Porsche. Going out of the final corner, the Alpine just gets a really good run. The Porsche getting slowed down, and it's a pretty textbook overtake there for the Alpine, getting it done before the braking zone of turn 1. Just now a podium place once again for Lewis Screech here tonight in the number 52 Alpine. As Scarlett Brown now has to defend from Tai Chin going into turn 6. And now the Alpine with a bit of breathing room to the Porsche and the KTM battling for position. Much can't be said the same about Reese Simmons trying to hold off Duarte Manhita for the race lead. Two laps remain for Reese Simmons to try and hold off and take the checkered flag out in front, but into turn 4. Manhita's challenging down the inside. Reese Simmons goes onto the grass and can't keep the grip. The race lead goes to Duarte Manhita in the number 27. After 18 minutes of staring at the back of the AMG in front, he is able to force the move to the inside. But now, can he hold on in the final 2 minutes of the race? Tai Chin also got through. Scarlett Brown in Sector 1 or Sector 2, and Tai Chin really pushing on and going onto the grass. KTM wants that podium position. It's 2 seconds to gain to the back of the Alpine, but time is really running out as Duarte Manhita, for the first time in this race, starts a lap from the race lead, and crucially, it is the final lap of the race, the one and only lap you really want to lead on. And he is doing just so after getting the overtake done in turn 4. He's got the race lead, and now just a final 2.4 mile lap left. A lot less now as he finishes out Sector 1. Heading up the hill into turn 4, Reese Simmons trying to hang on, but running a little bit wide once again there into turn 4. With Manhita trying to just see it home here. Josh Ransom, after that incident, oh, and there's more contact! Another incident for the Porsche. The 325 goes spinning after the contact with John Baptist. And they don't want to lose too much time here, as that's Hezzy Thomas and Rally Dutchy getting close. So Josh Ransom will return back to the pits after that contact. Manhita goes through Tenno Kanoko, and now just the final corner remains. Duarte Manhita started in 3rd, got up to 2nd on the opening lap, was looking at the back of Reese Simmons all race long up until the final few laps where he got the overtake done and into the race lead, and he finishes on the top spot in race number 2. Reese Simmons makes it an AMG 1-2 for a second podium of the night for the number 64. Lewis Screech hangs on to 3rd with Tai Chin getting very close at the line there to take 4th place. Scarlett Brown finishes in the top 5, drifting out of the final corner. And Chris Saunderson, a bit of a quiet race for the Audi, finishes in 6th. Donnelly is the lead Camaro, getting ahead of Prakash Natasan, who finishes in 8th, and it's Hezzy Thomas who gets up to 9th once again in round number 2. Can he hold on to 9th, though? It's Rally Dutchy who's going to challenge it. John Baptist falling a few places in that final lap there, but it's Hezzy Thomas in 9th, Rally Dutchy 10th, John Baptist across the line in 11th. Austin Charlie, I haven't mentioned his name a lot here in race number 2. He will take the checkered flag in 12th in the number 53 Firebrand BMW. Next you have Hirosh. 2 BMWs finishing next to each other on track, 12th and 13th. Last but not least, to take the checkered flag, Harrison Vladis in the number 2 Valvoline True Racing KTM. He will take the checkered flag in 14th place. And that'll finish out round number 2 for us tonight. Hope you enjoyed all of that on-track action, as we would love to invite our podium sitters to the green room for a quick chat of how your guys' race went on.
Green light. Give it all you can.
Ezzy Thomas, 2 top 10 finishes. Well done, my friend. Carrying on the momentum from last week. I think you got a top 10 finish last week as well, if I'm not mistaken. So well done to Hezzy. Off to a good start on the season. Bit of a shy podium once again this week. There it is. Look at that. See, I've got some memory still, Hezzy. Got you on that 9th finish last week. How do we join? Well, there is a green room channel that you can join. It might not be available to you. You might have to go into the channels and roles options and select it to be visible. Hopefully that works. Let me know if you're having troubles. Here we go. Welcome in. Welcome in, Reese. Congrats. Another
Hello.
podiums,
Thank
another
you.
couple of podiums for you tonight to carry it on from round number 1.
Okay, there we go. I should be working now.
It
Hello.
is, yes. Hello. Couple of second place finishes there. Race number 1.
Yeah,
a little bit
another good
more
weekend.
quiet there. Race 2 certainly had your mirrors full of AMG for the whole race.
I did, yeah. Yeah, I did, to be honest, I don't really know what happened quali 1. I felt like a completely different car from practice where I felt so comfortable, and then I was like something crazy like 7/10 off. And then, yeah, both races were so chaotic. I had lots of contact with that AMG in race 1. When we hit a back marker even, there was a back marker parked on the apex. And then,
Yeah, I think we saw that a little bit. Yeah, just an unlucky incident there.
Yeah, it's unlucky. I mean, to be fair, I think the KTM was trying to let us pass because they slowed down so much. But I mean, that part of the track is so tricky anyway. And then when there's a car stopped on the apex, there's really very little you can do to avoid it, racing speed. And then, yeah, quali 2 was great. The lap, I managed to get quite a few laps together, actually, that were all super close together. And beating Chin for the first time in quali this year was really, really huge. He's going to be quite formidable, but yeah, I mean, race 1, I thought I drove well. Definitely wasn't the quickest this weekend. A few questionable moments from the AMG, especially in race 2. I need to look back at our incident from race 1. I'm not really going to comment on that until I see it back. And then, yeah, I got totally wiped out. So I had maybe 3 or 4 seconds worth of damage in race 2 defending, which made it so tricky. I mean, the car become quite unpredictable. But yeah, he was definitely quick this weekend. So I think me, him, Chin, and I should have a few more weekends like that, hopefully.
Yeah, and like certainly improving on the racecraft from race number 1 there in race 2. Your battle was just so hard to take our eyes off of it for the entirety of the races. There was just so much battling going on all the way up and down there. But yeah, just always had to tune back in and almost able to hold on to that race win. Hopefully you will get it next week. And I think Ty's trying to join here from Rouge and Chill. Let's see if we can message Ty real quick. But yeah, talk us through what it's like getting prepared for these races. Do you do a lot of practice throughout the week, or do you just kind of hop in a few days before and try and get the laps in?
So, yeah, of course, Mazzano, I only did laps a few days before. I'll be honest with you, I jumped on quite late with Mazzano, so I was super happy actually with how that race went and how my pace was there to get a P1 and 2 there too. And then for brands, I actually practiced quite a lot of the week. Last week in Mazzano as well, I just ran the aggressive setup, which is what I did on the few races I did last season. Whereas this week I actually had some dedicated setups, which definitely helped the pace a bit, I think. I mean, I got my first pole with it, so I was super gassed about that.
Yeah, it's always good to see when the pace is just there from always out of the box. Yeah.
I mean, especially after Quali 1, which was a bit... I just wasn't sure what happened there. So in Quali 2, that was really nice to see. And I think, again, with next week being Watkins Glen, it's not a track I have too much experience with. I've done a few laps on ACC around there before and a few on Forza, but it's not a track I can say I'm completely comfortable with. So I think that'll be another week of just smashing in as many laps as I can.
Yeah, it looked to prove pretty effective here. Brands Hatch looking like a good home race for you there tonight.
Yeah, pleased with that, definitely. And I mean, for it being a rookie series, I mean, there's some really strong competition. I mean, yeah, Chin is really, really quick. And then, yeah, the AMG was really quick. It's just a shame we had those few incidents. And yeah, super happy as well for my Tambi teammates. They all had really great races today, especially Scarlett with another podium. So shout out to her. Well done to everybody else.
Yeah, it was very good. And yeah, like you said, despite it being a rookie series, just the level of racecraft and performance and even the pace just seems super strong all the way up and down the grid. And even the drivers fighting for 10th are still providing some great wheel-to-wheel racing. And so, yeah, it's just great to see all the drivers being able to perform at that good level where they are able to really challenge side by side through all the laps. And you guys certainly proved that at the front. Well done on the two second place finishes it was?
2 seconds today, yeah.
Yeah, well done on that. So yeah, great performance. Continuing on the results from last week also. So yeah, well done, and look forward to chatting with you in the future here.
Yeah, likewise.
Congrats. Move you back on here to the green room. Thanks for joining us, Reese. Appreciate all the insight that the drivers can bring in from the inside there. And happy to have all of you joining us tonight. Thanks to all the new followers. Thank you to the friends joining back onto the podium as well. Couldn't do it without you guys watching along and all of your support and continued support all the way through and through. The ACC series, the Le Mans Ultimates, the iRacing, anything that Trackalicious may host. We are always happy to have you with us in such large numbers. And welcome into all the Raiders that stuck around. Hopefully you enjoyed all the racing at the end there. The rookies, like Reese mentioned there, the rookies, despite it being a rookie series, does provide some absolutely fantastic action. And we will see if our friend who we're going to raid, Alex, can drive in some Le Mans Ultimate, so stick around for that. Show the love from one sim racing community to the next. things to look forward to from Trackalicious this week. Tomorrow we head into round number 4 of the Le Mans Ultimate GT3 Sprint League on Tuesdays. Round number 2 for the Wednesday multi-class at ACC on Wednesday night. And then iRacing in their IMSA style multi-class championship underway, also going to round 2 this week. And same with the Le Mans Ultimate Hypercar and GT3 Championship on Fridays. Heads to round number 2 at Imola as they follow the WEC calendar throughout their 8-week season. Saturday, everybody gets a break, and then on Sunday, we go to the MX5 Cup in iRacing, and next week we will be at Watkins Glen for round number 3 of the Rookies. So stick around for the raid. Have a good rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, or night, wherever you may be watching us from. We will catch you next time.